So monetary sovereignty in Scotland, what do you think? Should we have it?
Scotland should have its own taxing authority and its own tax credit, its own currency, which I've labeled the kilt, right? You're familiar with that? Okay. Yeah. So we won't go into that. So without it, you don't have the ability to sustain full employment. Your real wealth of any province is your real output, your real domestic output, plus imports minus exports. It's the starting point. And from there, you can modify it for national interest and strategic interest. But your real wealth, as a point of fact, is, it's your pile of stuff. And your pile of stuff is everything you can produce domestically, plus your imports minus your exports. And so most of it is going to come from your domestic production, goods and services. So by keeping everybody fully employed, you optimize that and you're optimizing your real wealth. And you can't do that if you're on a fixed exchange rate or if you've got using a foreign currency like the British pound, unless you have some arrangement for unlimited deficit spending from the UK, which is not even worth discussing. So for all practical purposes, you've got to have your own currency to do that. There's no way around that. And so you have to decide if that's an important goal, important to your life. If that's the way you want to live your life, or do you want to live your life where you're going to have periodic, bouts of high unemployment and all the issues that come with it, and elements of austerity. So you can't avoid those without having your own currency, because you're going to be subject to those as long as you're using an external currency. And so then the question is, okay, how do you operate policy? And that's fine, but you've got to get to that point. And the way you get to that point is by pointing out, and I've got a paper on that, it's called Exchange Rate Policy and Full Employment. That paper explains clearly why you need floating exchange rate policy, your own currency, to be able to support full employment. And to me, that should be your number one objective when you have the decision, when you're making the currency decision for Scotland. Do you want to support full employment, which is the essence of optimizing your real wealth, your true wealth? And that's pretty simple. So if you can use that to say, okay, this is what we need. Now, what's our policy going to be? It's much easier. Right now, the debate kind of floats back and forth between using pounds and fixed exchange rates and this and that, without the primary focus being on, look, can we support unemployment or not? It's what is the trade balance going to do and how are we going to be able to import and all that. Don't start with that. Start with, look, we want to have full employment at all times because that optimizes our real wealth. Don't use a bleeding heart argument because people have a right to full employment, which they do. I'm not arguing that. But the reason you want to do it collectively as a government is also, and to some people, more important, to 40% of your population, it's more important that you have optimal output. So if you can win that argument, this is how we optimize real economic performance, is with floating exchange rate, then you're also going to win the bleeding heart. And by the way, we're just going to have to accept full employment. Now you've got everybody. Okay, so you don't want to exclude people you don't have to. You want to get this done.
But that optimum output is so important for a small country, isn't it?
Yes.
More important for a small country, because if you're larger, you can operate at a lower than maximum because you're still creating so much. But for a country like Scotland, being size 5.5 million people, it is so crucial that every resource is pulled in to the economy for it to work. Yeah. Scotland, as part of the United Kingdom, has a very different outlook than it would have as an independent country. Right. Could you paint that picture of how different an economy like Scotland would be as part of the United Kingdom not being able to issue its own currency, and a country that is able to issue its own currency?
So by having your own currency, you have the ability to educate your children such that they can be successful wherever they may want to go. And at the same time, have an economy that's vibrant enough, attractive enough, full employment economy where if they want to stay home, they can stay home, and that you would be attractive to, people, globally, people would want to move to Scotland because of your economy. So you can only do that with, independent Scotland with your own currency. You cannot do that as a province of the UK.
It's wonderful that you said that, because on top of the conversation we had with David McWilliams, he was talking much more about what independence allows a country to do in terms of discovering its creativity. And what you've spoken about there is those kind of those two policy approaches underpinned by currency, but it allows you to become the country that you really want to be in. And would you agree that it kind of unleashes that creativity and allows you to stand up in the world?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what I mean by a vibrant economy. And maybe vibrant isn't, maybe there's a better word, but you want to have an economy that's vibrant. That doesn't mean it's the fastest growing necessarily, but it's the most attractive to people. It's a place where people want to live.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.